Good morning and happy Monday, friends. It is Miss Kennedy back for Module 4, Week 4. If you can believe it, we're into Week 4 of our online learning on Canvas. This week in our reading, we're going to be working on RL1.5. And so you're going to be able to say that you can explain the major differences between books that tell stories and books that give information. So again, our focus is RL1.5. If you want to repeat with me, I can explain. Come on, say it with me. I can explain major differences between books that tell stories and books that give information. Excellent. Now, you might be thinking, Miss Kennedy, where are you going with this? But I want you to take a look at this anchor chart we're going to make together. Because books that tell stories, we know they are called fiction, right? I apologize about my handwriting, but books that tell stories are called fiction, and books that give information are obviously our non-fiction. Good. So basically this week, we want to be able to tell the difference between fiction and nonfiction stories. Okay, so let's look at the major differences between fiction and nonfiction. All right? Okay, with our fiction text that we read, they're fantasy or make-believe. Like our fables or our folk tales and our fairy tales, there's some element of magic or make-believe. Fiction stories usually have illustrations. We read them in order. If you see that BME, that stands for beginning, middle, and end, right? With our fiction stories, there's usually a character, a setting, a plot, major events. Our characters usually have a problem and a solution. If we read a fiction story out of order, the story wouldn't make sense, right? We've got to read the beginning, middle, and end of our story. All right, and the most important thing I want you to remember is that we read fiction to enjoy it, okay? We want to make sure we're soaking up that story. We can't wait to see what happens next. Okay, let's check out the nonfiction side of our anchor chart. With nonfiction, it gives facts and information. Remember, we said that fiction is fantasy or make-believe, but nonfiction is based on true events or things that there's evidence of. It's factual, it's information that is real and true. Okay? In our nonfiction, we usually have photographs and text features, whereas in our fiction, we have illustration. And remember, our text features are those labels, headings, diagrams, charts, bold words, maps. So nonfiction texts are going to have those photographs and text features with that factual information in it, okay? All right, remember we said in fiction we have to read it in order, the beginning, middle, and end to see what happens in our story. But in nonfiction, we can read it in any order and it still makes sense because we're getting facts, okay, from the text. And we'll take a look at some in just a minute. All right, and when we read to enjoy our fiction or our fantasy or make-believe stories, nonfiction, we read to learn. They're trying to inform us or give us information about a subject or a topic, okay? So this week, we're going to read many fiction and nonfiction stories together, and you're going to see they have similarities and they're connected. So we're going to have to use this information that we discussed to decide, is this fiction and nonfiction, but we want to take fiction or nonfiction, but we want to take it a step further and be able to explain why. Okay? Let's look at a few examples together. Okay, I have here some books that we have read together this school year. All right. So I first have Ada Twist, Scientist. This is a rhyming story about a little girl named Ava, right? And she did all kinds of experiments and she always asked why. But Ada Twist, Scientist has a beginning, middle, and end. And Ada is not a factual person, right? She's a character. So this would be an example of a fiction text, right, boys and girls? Good thinking. Make sure you're paying attention. What about this one? This is one of our books called What Goes Snap, and it's all about animals. And it says this is about fierce and ferocious animals. So in the middle, it tells me about grizzly bears, right? In the beginning, it tells me about crocodiles. It doesn't matter what order I read this in, I'm going to learn something. It also talks about hippos. Okay, so this would be, let's see, I saw photographs in here and not illustrations. I saw some text features. I think I saw some captions. So this would be an example of a nonfiction text. Okay? All right. Now, let's check out our girl, Mae Jemison, right? Mae Jemison is an astronaut that we read about during our space unit, and we also talked about her for Black History Month. Mae Jemison is a real person, right? She's not a character. She's real. This is factual information about her life. When we open it up, oh, I see a map. That's a text feature, right? Okay. Here's a fast fact about her life when she worked for the Peace Corps. That's a caption. That's a caption about Mae. And here is a photograph. It's not an illustration. It's a photograph of Mae preparing to launch into space. So what do you think this would be? Fiction or nonfiction? Yeah. Yeah, that's right. You're right. This is a nonfiction text, okay? So today and all week when we read, we are saying that we can explain the major differences between fiction and nonfiction. I can't wait for you to enjoy the stories on the Scholastic website. All right? I miss you, I love you, and I'm rooting for you. You can do it.